Hello there. We need to wake up. Weak, wet, woke social policies do not work. They just embolden the more vicious amongst us. No amount of social workers or hand-wringing on social media is going to put right what happened to that woman and her 2 children in London last night. And don't forget the 3 passers-by and the 3 police officers who were also injured by the corrosive substance used on the 3 victims as they did their best to help them. What is it with this country that there are people out there who are quite happy to engage in this sort of activity with knives and nasty substances? What is it with this country when people are quite happy to go about equipped with such items in the first place? What has been introduced into UK culture to cause this? Has the fast-changing demographic makeup of these islands got anything to do with that? Or are our social betters going to blame it all on something imaginary, like white privilege? If that were to blame, then we'd see it clearly laid out in ONS statistics, wouldn't we? But it's not, and actual statistics that we can't talk about here tell a completely different story. And for those that say knife crime, for example, is falling, I would ask why then is the government always trying to tighten up knife crime laws and having to add the next generation of the zombie blade to the ever-growing list of banned weapons? Anyway, these corrosive substance attacks are not isolated to the UK. It is a worldwide problem. But according to a fairly recent report from 2023 by the UK charity, the Acid Survivors Trust International, or ASTI, the UK now has the highest number of recorded attacks in the world, with a 69% rise in the number of attacks in 2022. Acid attacks peaked in 2017 with 941 recorded cases. The figures then steadily dropped to reach 421 in 2021. This can be partly attributed to the Offensive Weapons Act coming into effect and the introduction of stricter controls on the availability of acid and other corrosive substances, alongside increased public awareness around the repercussions that perpetrators face if caught. However, 2022 saw 710 cases reported to the police. Acid attacks in the UK have been historically linked with gang violence, with most victims being male. But the trend has now reversed, with the number of female victims surpassing male victims for the first time. This signals a rise in violence against women and girls. On a regional level, the highest number of attacks can be seen in Northumbria, which is followed by London. Note that this refers to Northumbria, which is traditionally England north of the Humber, including South East Scotland. In 2022, the whole of Northumbria saw 183 cases, London had 163 and Merseyside 116. Does that mean that all Northumbrians are in the frame? Or those from just a section of it? Also bear in mind that many police forces did not respond to Freedom of Information requests from ASTI, so those figures could be far higher. And how that is broken down town by town and by demographics is very unclear. But the UK having the world's highest number of recorded acid attacks should worry us all, especially if some police forces don't get round to answering Freedom of Information requests. Although, to be fair, in some countries around the world, many such attacks would never be reported, let alone recorded. There's a link to the ASTI website in the descriptions box below, where they define such attacks as a vicious form of premeditated violence intending to cause long-term physical and emotional suffering. And we have to ask ourselves how we in the UK have allowed this to become part of our culture. How can it be that school kids are now regularly going round equipped with illegal blades? We've just had a report from the Mail today about a teacher becoming victim to one of them, stabbed in the back just outside the school gates. The teacher had only been in the job for 2 weeks. I wonder if any punishment meted out to the perpetrator will be more than that case where a knife-wielding youth was ordered by the court to write a letter of apology to their badly wounded victim. Knife crime had been on the rise up until the pandemic, then it dropped significantly, as you would expect. But in the following years it just started ramping up again, and the vast majority of such crimes are isolated to the under-25s. In my day, and in the days of most people in the UK, knives were carried as a necessary tool, not as a weapon. What has happened to us as a nation? Where does the blame lie? Government, parents, teachers, educational psychologists, modern role models, social media? Or is it more a general lack of interest within our society as a whole about the development of our children, both physically and mentally? Do we no longer believe that the nurture of children is central to the development of our society? Has our core mission become the nurture of the self, our self, at all costs? Or is it a part of a culture or cultures within the UK that sees the use of these implements as justified? Just consider that society is formed by all the things I've mentioned. But what happens when one small section of our society, a separate culture, wants their children brought up to reject our societal norms? A culture that believes the snail's pace UK criminal and civil justice systems are inadequate for their needs, so they can, in their eyes, be legitimately bypassed in favour of more immediate and physical actions. Generally, a society will develop its behavioural norms over time, and then, born from that, will come the punishments and social interactions that reinforces those norms. The punishments society will force on the wrongdoers and their actions. But where UK society, as it has become, does not frown on the actions that our newcomers believe fervently that it should frown on, maybe there is a huge incentive for the newcomers to do their own frowning on those they disagree with. That is, carry out their own punishments. And if their beliefs derive from a fervent religious view, which could be protected in UK law, then that will be difficult for a host nation to deal with. The host nation then has a choice: tolerate the dual, or even triple, or even quadruple systems of behaviour and punishment within its borders, or crack down and enforce the societal norms of the host nation, or repatriate those who do not wish to comply. And that last one is nigh on impossible for a second generation. So what do we do where a parent or even grandparent has beliefs that go against UK law and makes great efforts to ensure they are passed on to their heirs? A belief, for example, where you can be put to death or forced into police protection programs for burning a specific book or drawing a cartoon of a certain historical figure. Why should any society have to tolerate that? We need to wake up and act.